Okay, this one is going to be called Lockdown, Vaccines and the Occult. This is part 1 in their own words, and I published this on July the 10th, 2024. Lockdown, its attendant restrictions and the subsequent rollout of vaccinations were introduced as measures to preserve public health. If this ostensible reason was not true, what then were the ulterior motives? It seems clear that the lockdowns precipitated an enormous wealth transfer to the already super rich, destroying countless small businesses in the process. Is money and power sufficient to explain the motivations of those who already have seemingly abundant supplies of both? What reasons do prominent figures provide for the measures initiated from 2020 onwards? Klaus Schwab, the CEO of the World Economic Forum, which we'll call the WEF, stated, "The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world to create a healthier, more equitable, and more prosperous future." His book, COVID-19, The Great Reset, had been researched, written, and published by 9th of July 2020. Incredibly detailed WEF plans for a reset were appearing online by April 2020. The plan was launched by Prince Charles, who proclaimed, "We have an incredible opportunity to create entirely new sustainable industries. The time to act is now." The meaning of both these quotes depends entirely on what is meant by the word we. What is equitable is subjective, and what is sustainable depends on that which one wishes to sustain. WEF spokesman Yuval Noah Harari explained that. Actually, I read a Reuters fact check and they said he's not a spokesman. They say he's an agenda contributor. So WEF agenda contributor Yuval Noah Harari explained that. COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. If we want to stop this epidemic, we need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under the skin. He continues, "The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We now see mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin." End quote. This royally approved desire for total control makes sense when seen in the context I described here. Essentially, royalty is a state-sanctioned idea that some people are more important than others. It is an institutionalized form of racism that is woven into the fabric of society. The WEF's Great Reset exemplifies this view. The WEF is a self-professed elite making decisions on behalf of their human chattel. When Yuval Noah Harari, who acts as a sort of WEF high priest, openly asks in relation to the digital revolution, "What shall we do with all these useless people?" he does not provoke the outrage he might if he inserted an adjective such as black, homosexual, foreign, disabled, old or poor. Yet he speaks as though with the divine right of kings to act over people who only have use if they are of service to his clique. Harari does not explain how surveillance began to go under the skin, but he explains the incentives. Quote, "If you have enough data and have enough computing power, you can understand people better than they understand themselves, and then you can manipulate them in ways which were previously impossible. We need to reinvent democracy for this new era in which humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me, so whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over." End quote. Evidently, there is a royally endorsed initiative to acquire more control over the human population, to the point of eliminating personal choice. But in this language, there also appears another aspect concerning the subjugation of the spiritual realm. Harari makes this competition with the divine explicit. Quote, "The only things God managed to create are organic beings. All these trees and giraffes and humans, they are just organic, but we are now trying to create inorganic entities, inorganic life forms, cyborgs, artificial intelligence, and so forth. If we succeed, and there is a very good chance we will, then very soon we will be beyond the God of the Bible." End quote. It's worth quoting Harari at length here to convey a sense of the WEF's intentions. Quote, "For thousands of years, humans have imagined gods in a particular way. They ascribed particular abilities and qualities to gods, and we are here in a church, and the walls are full of these descriptions of what God can do, and we are now seriously in the business of acquiring these traditional divine abilities and qualities to ourselves. Whether it's trying to overcome death and gain immortality, or whether it's gaining the ability to create and design life according to our wishes. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, basically the first thing God does is to create animals and plants and humans according to his wishes. We are now trying to gain this divine ability to ourselves. It's very likely that in the 21st century, the main product, the most important products of the human economy will no longer be just vehicles and textiles and food and weapons. The main products will be bodies and brains and minds. And in a way, we are even reaching beyond what ancient religions ascribe to the gods, because the gods, like Jehovah in the Bible, they could create only organic beings. If you're a creationist and you look at the world, so all these animals, all these plants, God created them and they're all organic. Now humans are trying to do better than that." End quote. It is sometimes argued that the WEF is an irrelevant talking shop. Yet WEF CEO Klaus Schwab states unguardedly that their agents have, quote, "penetrated the cabinets," end quote, of governments around the world, and that the WEF has stakeholders in, quote, "business, of course," as a very important audience. We have politics, we have continuous partnerships with many governments around the world, we have NGOs, we have trade unions, media, of course, and very important experts and scientists and academia. Religious leaders, we have social entrepreneurs, end quote.